Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So once more we are back with some more Diamond Firetail Foursome action. So this is our team tournament that we have ongoing at the moment. And yeah, Beaky Blinders are continuing our strong start to the tournament. So hopefully we can get another win here in this game against Krasny. And yeah, keep up this strong start, keep the wins flowing, and hopefully progress into the knockout phases. So again, we are going second here in this game. Really wish I was going first with that lovely tray, but we can get stuck here into our starting hand. So yeah, not the greatest of starting hands. Couple of pink powers, and then really only the grosbeak in terms of a good brown power to be considering. So yeah, I'm kind of obviously jumping on that grosbeak, and then I'm thinking between the two pink powers, which one of these is the best one to keep. Obviously, the Avocet is the wetlands option, and I will need something in the wetlands just to get a bit more card draw. So that is the one I jump on first. And this bird feeder set up pretty nicely as well in order to be able to get the worms and the seeds for that. So that's kind of my first thinking. But then also I'm looking at the cuckoo and thinking, well, I'm going to have this grosbeak with a bowl nest. If my opponent is laying eggs, I can get some eggs obviously in that bowl nest. Whereas I don't have the ground nest that I need for the Avocet. So it might take a little bit of digging through the deck maybe to try and find the right nest type for that. But alternatively, I'm also considering keeping both. Now, it's kind of a weird start in terms of really focusing on pink powers so early, especially keeping 3 birds that all cost 3 food. It's a very expensive and potentially very slow start. But the way I'm kind of thinking it through in my head is, okay, if I keep the 2 food here, so that being the seed and the cherry, I can be pretty sure my opponent is going to grab that bunting, so they're going to grab some of those worms, but I can still make sure I can grab at least 1 on that first turn. And then I can spend a couple of turns getting food, play the cuckoo, and then maybe 1 or 2 more turns getting food, and then I can play the Avocet. And I think the way I'm planning it out in my head is I've got enough turns to do all of that, and still make sure that I can obviously get the birds down ready, particularly getting that Avocet down ready for going into round 2 so we can get some more card draw. So quite naturally my opponent, absolute no-brainer, you take the bunting there 10 times out of 10. I was in the back of my head thinking maybe they would leave it, and so obviously if they had, I would have been in a great position to be able to grab that and look to play that pretty quickly. But yeah, they take it, so I can, like I say, grab the worm that I need for this grosbeak. And yeah, I'm just going to try and get this down, start drawing some food, and hopefully start getting something set up in this forest, obviously with this cuckoo, so I can get a bit more access to food. Now, obviously with this warbler coming up in the tray, I was kind of looking at that, with this end of round goal being white and no powers. Potentially that can be a huge play, because if your opponent doesn't have any of those birds, that's 4 points for you and no points for them. But equally, if I leave that and they play it, that's 4 points for them and no points for me. So that's an 8-point swing on a single bird that also gives you a bonus card. So I think it was one of those where neither of us were taking it straight away. So I thought maybe I can get away with leaving it if they're not going to take it. I don't really mind if neither of us plays it. But yeah, if they're not going to take it, I'm very happy to just leave that. Like I say, I had a plan in my head. I had just about enough turns, depending on the way the bird feeder was going to be set up, in order to be able to get all the food that I wanted to get all of these birds down. So I'm just going to keep leaving it. I'm going to make sure I can try and get all this food I need. And once I can start getting some of these birds down, particularly in the forest and the wetlands, just to kind of increase, just to kind of improve my setup, increase my access to food and cards, that is certainly the priority for me. So yeah, we keep just going for food, as I said. Fortunately, the bird feeder is cooperating in some sense, because this grosbeak is able to get food every time. So even if it's cherries and seeds, which isn't necessarily the food I want, obviously that cuckoo can eat anything for one of the foods, so I'm probably going to look to use cherry in that sense. And yeah, I mean, extra food is always nice. If I do have to pay for some 2-for-1s to get this Avocet down, then I will do. That's not the biggest deal in the world. But equally, just having that bit of extra food, you know, can often set you up very nicely in round 2, particularly, you know, if I can draw a couple of cards on that first turn. Yeah, if I've already got the food to play that, that can really save me a bit of tempo in just getting things set up. You know, maybe I'm going to look to extend my wetlands out, or maybe get something in the grasslands as well. But yeah, you will see there, the warbler is gone. So my opponent, they'd had enough messing about. They decided they weren't happy to leave that there any longer. So yeah, I think for them it did fit pretty nicely into what they were planning. So obviously they've grabbed it. They've got 2 turns left here. They already have a seed. They can lay eggs and hope for a worm on the reroll with the bunting. And very fortunately for them, they do get plenty of worms there in order to get this warbler down. And yeah, they are clearly going to look to do that. Now we do get the free egg, which I'm pretty happy with, obviously. And yeah, bird feeder, really, really nice with all those worms. Obviously, it was good for my opponent, but really good for me as well, just to be able to get this Avocet down. So yeah, with the food there for the warbler, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer that my opponent is going to play that on the next turn. They do indeed do that in order to win this end of round goal. But for me, I've still got this Avocet, which is, yeah, big points in its own right, and it's just going to really help me hopefully get some good cards as we go here into the second round. So we'll take a look at the tray. Not the greatest of trays. Obviously Golden Eagle looks pretty attractive because I have got the Falconer bonus, but it's a very expensive bird, and you know, sometimes getting those 3 rodents can be quite tricky. So it's not always you know, the easiest bird to play this early in the game particularly. Really, I'm just hoping for a ground nest. So yeah, like I said, at the moment when my opponent lays eggs, I can get something from the cuckoo, but not anything from the Avocet because I don't have the right nest type. So that is why I leave the eagle and go off the top of the deck. Now, hummingbird in this case, I think is actually a pretty good pickup. So obviously the previous bird I picked up, Loggerhead Shrike, probably not the best pickup here, if I'm being respectful to it. But hummingbird, I think it works well. I've already got the food, I've got an egg to play it. It's just going to help you know, get me access to the extra cards. I don't have to spend the egg in order to get those 2 cards. It's going to help me get a bit of food. So yeah, I've had quite a few games like this, even just in this tournament in particular, where you get a hummingbird and something else in the wetlands and just start drawing cards, and you see a lot of cards. I think particularly when you are looking for some extra birds, particularly with a specific nest type in this case, then I think that absolutely makes sense. But yeah, before we get the hummingbird down, I'm kind of preemptively here grabbing the rodents for the eagle you'll see there. So it's a slightly unusual kind of way of doing this, I think. Normally you grab the bird and then you get the food for it. But I wanted to make sure that, yeah, when those 2 rodents are there, I'm going to be getting those straight away. So obviously on this next turn I can, yeah, play this hummingbird with something else. And because there's still 2 rodents there, I can obviously, yeah, grab the extra rodent on this next turn when I do pick up cards and use the hummingbirds. And then suddenly I've got everything I need for the eagle. So that is going to be a huge play at some point in the game. You know, obviously if I can play it now, maybe in the grasslands or in the wetlands, that's going to be very helpful indeed. That is all scuppered a little bit there when my opponent resets the bird feeder. So I was definitely not expecting him to gain food. I thought they were just going to keep laying eggs. But yeah, maybe they're just getting a little bit nervous about giving me too many free eggs, or maybe they're just looking at potentially getting a bit of extra food as well. Now, on this turn, we go for food and we get the blue throat, which was almost a dream bird to be picking up in this situation, because that is all of my ground nest spaces sorted. You know, I was saying I needed something for this Avocet. Obviously, it could only lay eggs on the ground nests, and blue throat, big points in its own right. Really easy food to get hold of, particularly with this bird feeder setup. And yeah, 5 ground nest spaces. That is going to be a huge saviour. You know, once I get that down, I'm going to have 5 spaces in the ground nest. I'm going to have 5 spaces in the bowl nest. That's going to set me up so nicely. And yeah, just make sure for me personally that whenever my opponent lays eggs, I'm actually benefiting from it fully. Because there have been a few times in this round you have seen where, you know, my opponent laid eggs, I got something from the cuckoo, but couldn't make the most from that Avocet, which is always a bit of a shame. Now, my opponent then goes for cards and reveals Wood Duck into tray. And straight away, I was not messing about anymore. I absolutely needed to grab that. You know, that really does kind of solve two of my problems at once, in that it's going to help me, kind of like my wetlands at the moment, get access to both cards and food at the same time. And certainly when you've got a lot of big food cost birds in your hand like this, being able to get extra food through something like that grosbeak is never a bad thing at all. So yeah, quite fortuitous, I think, the way this worked out. Obviously I was able to pick up the wood duck and then through the reroll on the hummingbird get the extra food that I needed to play it. Yeah, pretty nice, pretty straightforward. I can obviously look to get this down, and then we're kind of away. We're just going to keep drawing cards, obviously now through this wood duck, and getting extra food. And we've got this big point eagle to play. We've got this nice big point and big egg space blue throat as well to be playing. So yeah, all in all, obviously my opponent got the mute swan, but I was very happy to be getting this wood duck. Very happy indeed. And yeah, you see, I'm kind of thinking here, trying to work out, you know, what I should be doing and what my opponent's going to be doing, because I want to make sure that I have eggs for this end of round goal. And at the moment, I've only got one. So if I play the wood duck and then go for food, I'm not going to have any eggs unless my opponent lays eggs. And I think they're in a position where they don't need to do that. They can afford to, you know, maybe play another bird or draw cards. I think particularly now they've got this mute swan, they're absolutely going to be looking to add something to that to increase their card draw. And yeah, they can pretty safely not lay eggs and win the end of round. So just the way the bird feeder was set up and kind of the way this round was playing out, I think it made sense there to go for the food. And obviously now I've got the food to play the wood duck and the blue throat in either order. And so I think it makes sense here to play that blue throat first. Obviously gets me the ground nest spaces, so if my opponent does choose to lay eggs, I can benefit from that avocet. But also, being the first bird in my grasslands, it's not going to cost me that egg on the grosbeak. So yeah, all in all, pretty good. And then obviously, going into the third round, I can, yeah, look to get this wood duck down. Hopefully get some nice more bird cards from the deck or from the tray, and obviously get the food to play this as well. So yeah, set myself up pretty nicely, I feel, going into this third round. And into this third round we go. So as mentioned, pretty comfortable lead, pretty unassailable lead there for my opponent in the end of round goal, but we will take coming second and take the qualification. So no messing about, straight away we're going to get this wood duck down. Nothing really in the tray that caught my eye. I did notice my opponent, they grabbed the cedar waxwing, so that to me is telling me that they're potentially going to look at pivoting back into this grasslands once they picked up a few cards. Obviously on this reroll, they are able to get a couple of cherries, which I'm sure they were very happy to see, and obviously, yeah, just help them get this waxwing down a bit sooner. But for me, I can grab that final rodent and hope for some big point birds. Wild turkey, very, very welcome. Obviously burying owl as well in the tray. I think that was a good pickup there. Plenty of egg space for these pink powers while hitting the falconer as well. Now we reveal another pink power in the tray in the common cuckoo. So yeah, kind of expecting there that my opponent will either just pick that up as a denial, or, you know, maybe just, yeah, either get rid of it in some way, because I don't think they really want to see me going with any more pink powers at this position. I've already got two, and yeah, if they're planning a strong grasslands pivot here with bunting and waxwing, getting eggs and tuck cards and food, I don't think they really want to be giving me the extra eggs through another pink power. That all said, they do indeed leave it for me. So yeah, I was quite surprised, to be honest, but very, very happy indeed. I think it was kind of borderline whether it was going to be too late. But kind of all things considered, I think it made sense with the timing here. Obviously, kind of grabbing food and grabbing cards through the wood duck is ordinarily a good turn anyway for me. But yeah, just being able to get that extra food, you know, some of the food for the turkey as well. And yeah, you know, I can play this cuckoo potentially as my fourth forest bird, and then that's just going to help increase food access even more. So yeah, I can really try and time this as well, hoping that my opponent, you know, they still haven't played this waxwing. So if they do play it now, I can obviously react immediately with this cuckoo. And yeah, with the triple pink powers, So difficult, I think, to try and score points in your grasslands when you're giving away 3 points to your opponent in this way. And here we go, onto our next turn. My opponent not playing the Waxwing yet. They go for cards again. So yeah, obviously with no eggs at the moment, I'm not able to play birds, which is a bit of a shame. I would definitely like to be, playing this cuckoo, or obviously I've got these couple of falconer birds in my hand as well. I've got the wild turkey, so absolutely some good options. And I've already had games in this tournament over the past week or so where having a couple of pink powers really putting my opponent off laying eggs, to the point where I didn't get any eggs at all, and it did really slow me down a bit. So you see, I'm kind of thinking here, I'm trying to work out in my head, right, if I go for food again, is that gonna buy me enough time? Are they really gonna lay eggs? But really, I think it was always clear that they were going to be playing that Waxwing before laying eggs, so I knew it was going to be at least a turn or two before I was really going to see any eggs. And like I say, I desperately wanted to be getting these birds down, particularly this common cuckoo. So we do go for eggs. Obviously we can chuck a food, and like I say, I've got plenty of access to food, I think, especially if I do play this cuckoo as my 4th forest bird and unlocking that extra food generation, then certainly 1 egg there is worth more than 1 food. So there is a little bit of sort of mind games as well with the end of round, so I think that's partly why my opponent spent extra turns drawing cards in the way they did. But there we go, they do indeed eventually get the Cedar Waxwing down. And luckily, because I had just laid eggs on the previous turn, I can immediately respond, as I said, with this common cuckoo. So you will see I'm kind of debating whether it's better in the forest or the grasslands. Obviously, it can go in either habitat, which is quite a nice feature of this bird compared to the other pink powers. I was kind of thinking to myself, is the extra food generation really that necessary? Or would it be better in the grasslands for maybe some kind of late game pivot laying eggs? But yeah, in the end, I do decide that at least 1 or 2 turns maybe of going for food, getting the cards through the wood duck, and obviously a bit of extra food as well, could be a good option, for getting these existing big point birds down, but also other big point birds that I might find as well. So yeah, really kind of nice to get these 3 pink powers down. It's now at the point where, my opponent, they lay eggs, they get 3 eggs, but I get 3 eggs as well. So such a strong counter to any kind of point scoring that they're going to try and generate in this grasslands. And yeah, obviously if they keep laying eggs, it's going to help me get more of these birds down without having to lay eggs myself. But also I do have some considerations to make for that final end of round goal. Eggs in the wetlands. If I can try and maximize off that without laying eggs too many times myself, then I'll be very, very happy indeed. And so we come to our final turn here in the round. You see my opponent has drawn birds. So they I think, have an eye on this end of round goal birds in hand. They put themselves in a position where I can't catch that total. Obviously the wood duck draw 2, but I have to discard 1, which does make it quite tricky in terms of just getting the extra cards to meet an end of round goal like this. So yeah, you'll see I'm kind of thinking, I'm trying to work out, okay, is it better to be playing a bird in this turn in case I do have to lay eggs next round? That's kind of what I'm thinking. And so yeah, that's why I went for the golden eagle. Obviously, laying eggs has a pretty good chance of getting some hunting success as well. So here we go into this final round. And yeah, I mean, the tray, it's not amazing, but I think Eleanor's Falcon is potentially an option for me to consider. Certainly over this burrowing owl. It's got the ground nest that 2 of my pink powers can lay eggs on, and it goes in the wetlands. So for this end of round goal, potentially getting a couple of eggs there would be very, very nice indeed. Obviously rodent in the feeder as well, pretty easily grab that, and alongside that get the food for the wild turkey. So yeah, I felt like that was a pretty good option for me to pick up. Obviously go 1 off the deck first, see what we get. Canada Goose not really going to work in this setup, even with all these extra seeds we are getting thanks to the grosbeak. So we'll get rid of that. And we've got 4 turns left, 4 turns that feel pretty plain sailing. 2 turns playing these big point birds. Obviously Eleanor's Falcon going to be getting me a couple of extra points thanks to my bonus cards. And then maybe those last 2 turns, maybe I just spend them laying eggs. Hopefully get some successes off that golden eagle. And yeah, pretty straightforwardly score points that way. So here we go. We get our first dose of eggs, and I can't tell you how satisfying it was getting those 3 eggs on a single turn. Really, really nice. Yeah, kind of set me up nicely here to be able to play another grass and bird before having to lay eggs, which is always nice. I was kind of preparing myself. Maybe I'd have to, lay eggs first if I was going to play this falcon and this turkey, but yeah, I've got the flexibility here to absolutely get both of these down. So falcon, absolutely the priority. I want to be making sure I fill up those egg spaces if possible. If my opponent's strategy is just going to be to spam eggs late in the game, then I can really hopefully maximize off that. But yeah, certainly I think this wild turkey is going to come down pretty soon afterwards, and then we can just lay eggs and score some points. So jumping forward a couple of turns here, you'll see I did indeed get the wild turkey down, and alongside that we get another dose of 3 eggs. So very, very nice. Obviously try and get as many of these down in the wetlands as possible. And yeah, my opponent, they've not managed to get an extra wetland bird down. So as long as we can stay in this position, they only have 4 egg spaces and we have got 6. So very, very nice indeed. And yeah, now's the time, I think, for me to lay eggs. If there was a nice option in the tray, I could maybe pick up and play it. But obviously the real problem with this forest is that it's not scoring me any points. It is only generating cards and food. So yeah, I can look to lay eggs here. Obviously discard the food that I had, get the extra egg. Fortunately, getting that hunting success on the eagle as well. And I'm considering here gaining a food through the blue throat. Now, this primarily, obviously, is to discard for the extra egg next turn. Kind of squeeze that extra point out. Obviously, potentially helps my opponent as well if they are going to, maybe they just discard it and get the extra egg, and it doesn't really count for anything in that sense. But I think really it caught them off guard here because I'd not used it previously in the game. Obviously, they have got 3 grass and birds that all can generate food for them. So I was kind of thinking they've probably already got all the food they need. So it was never going to be a case of this extra food that I give them is going to really tip them over the edge in order to help them play an extra bird. It was more going to be, maybe this saves them a point, just in terms of maybe they don't have to use their crow for a turn, or like I say, maybe they just discard it and get the extra egg anyway. But yeah, I think that was a kind of a good option for me there to just try and squeeze that extra point out. And yeah, hopefully try and get us over the line here as we come towards the final turns in this game. And so we come here onto our last turn of the game, and yeah, kind of as expected really, my opponent laying eggs again, getting plenty of free eggs here through these pink powers. Very, very nice indeed. Their food hasn't changed, so I think they did just obviously discard that and get that extra egg there. So made no difference in the end, but always worth going for it. And yeah, clearly I'm going to skip this blue throat here. I don't need the extra food now, but yeah, golden eagle, 2 hunts from 2 attempts. Very, very happy indeed at this point of the game. And yeah, my opponent with just 1 turn left. Obviously, I'm kind of thinking what they're going to do. If they lay eggs, I've got plenty of space, but in the end, they play a bird. We take the end of round goal fairly comfortably, and we go here into the scores. So yeah, I felt pretty confident. Obviously, all of those free eggs from those 3 pink powers that came late in the game, very, very welcome indeed. But just a huge number of bird points. 58 is such a big lead. Obviously, not a huge number of bonus card points, but I think enough. And then end of round goals. My opponent is starting to drag it back a bit here, but there we go. With all those pink power eggs, we get plenty of points, a few tuck cards from my opponent, and it is a win. In the end, 91 points to 85. So all in all, pretty close. But certainly, I think it's just so difficult for my opponent late in the game there to try and score points. Essentially every point they were scoring there through eggs, I was also scoring points through eggs, thanks to them. So yeah, just a huge counter. And yeah, really having all of those egg spaces to be able to maximize off the pink powers. Very, very welcome indeed. And obviously playing those big point birds and then laying eggs a few times myself. Pretty solid final round end game. And so we have another win to count towards our total for the Beaky Blinders. And it is a strong start that continues to go on and on and on. So we have a couple of games left in the group stages of this tournament for ourselves, but a few games left as well for our teammates. So hopefully with a few more wins, we can get over the line and into the knockout stages. So thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that gameplay video. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel. You can stay up to date with more gameplay and strategy content like this.